The Companions and Pets Party has applied to rename itself to the End Mass Immigration Reform AU Party.
They must have had some really bad experiences with their pets or something.
Exactly. Because they don't
Can you imagine the internal faction fight?
Well, hello and welcome to today's episode of The Party Line. You're here with me, Annika.
Omar.
Geordie.
And as always, this podcast is being recorded on Indigenous land. We stand in solidarity with struggles for Indigenous liberation and with our Indigenous comrades in their fight against racism and capitalism. Thanks for listening.
Oh, my darling, oh, my darling, oh, my darling party line. Oh, I never will forsake thee, for I love this life of mine.
Okay, well, I was at AC/DC last night, Omar.
Yawn.
And
Who?
it was really good. But it sort of brought to mind, because Geordie was at Oasis the other week and you were pretty...
On my birthday. No less.
No less.
Literally on my birthday. It's actually disgusting. All my friends out there should be deeply ashamed of themselves for not chipping in to get me a ticket to that gig.
Well, the real question is, did you deserve it?
Probably not. The Oasis brothers are now like king capitalists, so the tickets are probably like $1,000 or something. So
They're expensive.
How much were they, Geordie?
I got them from a friend whose parents couldn't make it. So, yeah, significantly less than they cost. But there was like half of Ireland and the UK at Marvel Stadium, and he made a joke about it because the tickets over there were so expensive. So the airfare and the tickets
Surely
over
not.
here, yeah. So people travelled here because it was like £1,000 or something for a ticket.
Oh my goodness.
No way.
Yeah, it was insane.
That's too much money.
Yeah, I mean, these people are disgusting. Like, one of their T-shirts was £180.
Oh my God.
Like, seriously.
Some of them looked cool.
Yeah,
It's like
I mean,
the Adidas thing with Oasis. Like, that's pretty sick. I'm paying 180 for a T-shirt.
I know. But anyway, tell us about AC/DC before we hijack onto a much better band.
There's not really anything that political to say about AC/DC. It was just pretty excellent. They still rock. They still shred.
Are they really old?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you be like that kind of rocker when you're 75?
Well, they just were. It was phenomenal.
All right.
Look at Ramstein. They're still going hard with like the backpack with flames and everything. They're going to be ancient.
Yeah. Someone wrote a socialist article trying to analyse Ramstein once, and
Good luck.
I can't think of anything else except that when that band is mentioned. But Oasis, seriously, they get so much hate. But I'm going to put it out there that they're one of the best modern rock bands.
Yeah.
And
I think this is just like an insight into sort of like Omar's tastes and...
No, I mean, I'm totally a hip-hop R&B guy, but I just grew up with Oasis, and I'll never forget listening to it with my cousin. But the snobbery about them, I think, is really anti-working class in a way, because they're shit people politically and economically and everything about them. But the fact that so many people connect to their lyrics, you know, which sort of make no sense, but strike an emotional chord.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, like I don't think it's an accident. And they're not like Taylor Swift or the Backstreet Boys or something, who are just like totally artificially constructed. They were popular before the mainstream got onto them, which I think tells you they connect to something about the working class experience of like being trapped and wanting to be free and all that kind of stuff.
But weren't they like pretty right-wing?
They were, yeah. They love Tony Blair.
Awesome.
And now they're even worse.
Yeah.
They're like anti-woke.
And like, yeah, extremely homophobic.
Yeah. No, terrible. Can't defend them at all. But, you know, what did you say about Jordan De Goey?
Nothing.
All right, we'll leave it there.
There was what was the line? You sent us a line about, someone wrote about them.
Oh, yeah. What was
Like
it?
rock without rock or something like that.
Sexless.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I mean, you don't want guys like that being very sexful, I reckon. It's probably...
It said, Noel plays his guitar as if he's scared it'll break. An Oasis funkless, sexless plod is always carefully pitched below the velocity at which fluid dynamics dictate that you might spill your lager. Is there anything more useless than a rock band that doesn't rock?
Yeah.
It's kind of beautiful writing.
It's good writing. But I'm sure that person probably really liked the Arctic Monkeys or something.
They said they liked Pulp.
Oh.
Yeah, talk about a band that doesn't rock. They're a good band, but, you know, fairly tame.
Okay, what's next?
Oh, yeah. Anyways, what's been happening this week? We've got a few headlines that we're going to go through. Some of them are very important. Some of them are less so. So bear with us.
You be the judge.
Maybe people can tell us which headline they liked the most.
Exactly. So first cab off the rank. On the day of the dismissal, how many years?
50.
50. Okay, excellent. The US announced that they're celebrating anti-communism week.
Yeah, an ancient tradition among the tribes of that area.
Which is very funny. This week, our nation observes Anti-Communism Week, a solemn remembrance of the devastation caused by one of the history's most destructive ideologies.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Thank you, White House.
Yeah, so that's important.
I'm glad that we're being recognised.
Do you think they'll do a dance in the ballroom in our honour?
Probably.
Like a somber, I don't know. What's a somber dance? Like a tango.
That's not...
Cold War. No, like Cold War battles, like one of them's the communist, one of them's the capitalist.
Okay.
I can imagine it. Someone should choreograph
that. Next up this week, we had the New South Wales government, their affordable housing program has created a really beautiful kind of building in Barangaroo, even though it's like a soulless desert of just gambling and casinos and stuff, that has affordable housing in it. Still incredibly expensive because affordable housing sucks, but the people who live in affordable housing in Barangaroo in that development can't enter through the same door as all the rich people, where the apartments are like between $2 and $3 million each, up to $5 million.
So they have like a servant's entrance.
They have like a trades entrance, like poor
upstairs,
doors.
downstairs.
Exactly, and they can't use the pool or the gym if you live in the affordable housing section.
Were they told that before they bought them? Do you reckon?
I don't think
Maybe in the fine
anyone
print.
was told, because you can't buy it. It's like only for renters, and you got to enter the lottery and everything like that. To get your you still have to be earning heaps of money, and then once you win the lottery, you get your little apartheid door.
And maybe you can look at people having fun in the pool.
Well, the communal areas are actually completely separate as well. Like you can't even contact these rich people in your building.
It'd be too much for the rich people to have to go anywhere near a poor person.
Yeah,
it's for the best, I think. Their eyes probably couldn't handle the beauty.
Naturally. Next up, we had Donald Trump suing the BBC for $1 billion.
$1 billion.
Yeah, insane. It's a made up number. He just come on. And then the BBC said it's prepared to apologise to Trump.
Of course they are.
On the basis of what, defamation?
I'm not reading that article.
It is just the headline.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, the guy has no reputation to defend.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what do you...
But the funny thing is that they actually sacked two of the leading people in the BBC. They didn't sack them for the depictions of Gaza, defending the IDF. They didn't sack them for any of the right-wing shit they've done, but they've sacked them for offending poor old Donald.
Holy shit.
Incredible. Misrepresenting this great democratic hero of our times.
Is BBC... Oh, no, that's the British broadcast. I thought it was a national American one. I don't think they have one.
No.
Next up, this one's probably the most important headline, but apparently Zendaya and Sydney Sweeney are in a bit of feud over differences in their political beliefs.
I'm team Zendaya.
That's so important.
Yeah, so the Daily Mail reporting.
Well, Sweeney is a registered Republican, and Trump was very excited about that when he found out. So, yeah. And she refuses to distance herself from the Republicans, so...
Just an insight into the making of this pod. We were actually considering doing a segment on Sydney Sweeney and her stupid ad, but we were saved by Jacinta Allen. More on that in a second.
Thanks for that, Jacinta. Another one from the Wall Street Journal. This one's called, Will a 50-year mortgage make homes more affordable? Here's how it would work.
Yeah, and so, alternate headline, we're welcoming back serfdom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 50 years is a bargain. You're going to be free for at least 10 years after that. I think to make it really affordable, it should be 200 years minimum.
Naturally.
You could pass it down to your children and your grandchildren.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then one day you could really own a house somewhere in the middle of the suburbs.
With the good old days. Another one. So I don't know if everyone remembers, but all of the, the 5% deposit stuff that Labor just introduced. Turns out it's really good for investors. They're making heaps of money. massive increases in house prices in certain areas already.
And apartments and units.
And apartments and units specifically, but also because it's, the first home kind of target market. But also there's some data that's come out about housing loans, comparing the amount of investor loans versus owner-occupier loans. And it's just shot up. So
which part of it?
Which one do you reckon?
Homeowner?
Nah.
Damn.
That's sad.
Yep. Also, COP in Adelaide is going to cost us $2 billion.
If we get it.
Yeah, they're actually going to do it there.
I heard that was confirmed. But
they're fighting between them and Turkey.
Right.
And Australia doing it is ludicrous. We're like we said, one of the biggest, we are the biggest, I think, exporter of fossil fuels on the planet if you combine coal and gas. But then the other thing is $2 billion. Like, we could actually
do with that.
Do something for the environment with $2 billion instead of
or we
hosting.
could help BBC pay their debt to Donald Trump.
But seriously, it's just disgusting. COP, there's actually it's like a festival. It's like because every NGO on the planet comes.
Yeah.
Every famous kind of politician, lobbyist, they all have retinues, like staff, and they book out every hotel. They set up extra tents on the lawns and stuff. It's a absolute carnival of pseudo environmentalism. It's quite incredible.
It is. Yeah, it's in Brazil this year, right? No,
honestly, I haven't followed it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I haven't really followed the COPs for a while because it's just the whole just lack of action around the climate crisis. It just shows how useless these COP conferences are.
Exactly. Next up, CommBank is on track to post an over $10 billion profit this year. That's really good. Mainly from, home loans. So
that's inspiring.
Yeah, really exciting. But apparently the share price went down. So that's good.
They weren't happy with that.
That's not
10 billion. Shit. They're going to have to really...
12.
Yeah, they're going to have to scrimp and save all these investors.
Exactly. Next up, final cab off the... Oh, no, second last. The Companions and Pets Party has applied to rename itself to the End Mass Immigration Reform AU Party.
They must have had some really bad experiences with their pets or something.
Exactly. Because they don't
Can you imagine the internal faction fight that would have generated that kind of perspective change? We just want to have more fountains for our dogs to drink when we're walking. And then, actually, you know what? Yeah, we're going to change tack entirely.
Yeah.
It's almost like there weren't anything about companions or pets. So
where are they registered, this part? I've never heard of them.
I have no idea.
Maybe they're just federal.
Yeah, I reckon it's a federal one.
So it's easier to register a anti-immigration party than it is to register a socialist party.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, AEC. Love ya.
Yeah, I wonder what the Nazis think about this one. They're cutting their grass a little bit, actually.
Yeah.
There's so many of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Good on them. Not good on them.
We don't endorse those comments by Jordan Vanderlyn.
I retract that statement.
I choose to distance myself from Jordan.
Yeah, same actually. Also, finally, Brand Coles is playing classical music so that people stop shoplifting.
I actually love this story.
It's really good.
Yeah. It really implies a certain judgment call about who they think is shoplifting.
Yeah.
Which, I have absolutely no comment on.
Yeah. Omar really hates classical music.
Maybe they were hoping to welcome in white collar crime into Pran Coles instead of just petty shoplifting.
Yeah, they want the Commonwealth Bank execs to go
Yeah, the Mozart enjoyers. Now you're up to date.
Thanks for taking us through the news.
Anytime. I really enjoyed that.
Riding out the party line.
Well, yesterday in Victoria, the Jacinta Allen government announced that they're going to introduce a raft of new laws that are targeted against so-called young offenders, which will see children as young as 14 potentially face jail time in adult prisons.
Life imprisonment.
Yeah. And so to talk about that, we've invited Tom Rowie to come and chat on the podcast. Tom is an anti-police activist. He runs the Anti-Cop Instagram, which is an educational resource for people to find out about the police, weapons they use, and the tactics that they employ. So welcome on to the pod, Tom.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Now, I understand that you and Omar know one another from university days.
a long time ago, probably more than 10 years. Yeah. At UCID, we're involved in strikes and a few other actions together. So good to see you again, Omar.
Yeah, you too. The picket lines that the NTU organised at UCID in 2013 were probably the most militant pickets that I've ever seen on a university to this day. And they became a real focal point for left activism in the city. And one of the days, like, the police just decided they didn't like the look of Tom for some reason. And they tried to grab him. And we prevented that from happening, which was good.
Did the cops break someone's leg at that picket line?
They did.
Yeah. They broke another person's ribs. A bunch of people were, seriously injured, arrested. It was very violent. But, we protected each other. There were a few successful de-arrests, like you referred to, Omar. So, it was a crash course in police tactics. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And it was a real making of a left, in the city at that time. Like, for a lot of people, it was their first ongoing experience, both of the police, but also industrial action and understanding the importance of working class people and fighting and stuff like that. So it really shaped the politics of that campus for some years to come.
Mm-hmm. Well, what do you make of these new laws that are being proposed by the Allen government, Tom?
Oh, it's pretty horrific. It's so strange because the federal Labor government is saying children under 16, their brains are not well developed enough to be making responsible decisions, right? So they can't be on social media. They can't go on Instagram, or I don't think kids go on Facebook, but, things like that.
They can't vote.
But then at the state level, they're saying, well, if you're 14 and you commit a crime, and they are serious crimes, like injuring people, breaking into homes, then you can go to prison for life. And that is just insane. That's a really cruel thing to do to a child who doesn't have the full understanding of the world, their brain's not fully developed, to make one mistake and to potentially have your entire life behind bars is quite barbaric. Yeah. And it's not going to stop any crimes as well. No.
Yeah, because nobody doing crimes thinks about, reads the laws, thinks about the potential consequences, and then weighs up pros and cons.
Yeah, let alone at 14.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just a reactive slogan to try and neutralize the issue politically. And they're just throwing these kids under the bus.
And it does nothing about the actual, circumstances that people are in that lead to these things.
No, we know, there's mountains of criminological evidence that tougher sentences don't deter crime. Yeah. Because, like you said, people aren't in their right headspace when they're doing these things. And if they are premeditated, which most serious crimes are not, then the person probably doesn't think they're getting caught anyway. So they're not concerned about the length of the sentence. What we do know actually stops these violent crimes is measures that reduce inequality and poverty. So public housing, good education, jobs, that's the stuff that stops people from, hurting each other, breaking into homes, education about misogyny and violence against women. These are tried and tested things. And Jacinta Allen, the Labor government, they know this. They get all the reports. They know what will actually work. And so that makes it all the more, I think, gross that they are deliberately doing something that will ruin these children's lives, won't stop any other crimes, instead of doing the things that will actually help people, because they're so craven. They want to look tough to win an election. But it won't even work. People that want to punish kids, they're going to vote Liberal anyway. I don't really... It's just sad.
I mean, I think those points are really important. In Victoria, over the last 10 years, the police budget has been increased by over $2 billion, which is an awful lot of money. And I think the idea that this is going to lead to prevention of crime is sort of just totally wrong. Like you've said, all it does is make young people's lives worse. Imagine what we could spend $2 billion on. That would make, things better for young people. There was a study that came out a couple of months ago that showed in the western suburbs of Victoria, there is, I think it's one pool per 100,000 residents. So just things like leisure time for people to have something else to do. Yeah. What else is there to do in these western suburbs where there's no public transport? People's lives are hard, boring and alienating, which means that people are looking for something else.
And the fact that they've borrowed these laws from
the Queensland LNP,
where the LNP ran basically a race riot kind of campaign on the back of big anti-Indigenous demonstrations in the northern part of that state. And they've just copied the slogans verbatim from them. Tells you a lot about what they're aiming at here.
Yeah, they're being a bit more subtle about the racism, but it's the same dog whistle. Like, it's going after these African gangs.
Exactly.
It's just, it's racist, essentially.
Yeah, when
the
people
only youth services they want to fund is like the PCYC, which puts people in police surveillance anyway.
Exactly.
So it's, if they really wanted to solve the problem, it wouldn't be the police. They fund the police because the police, they're not good at actually solving crimes. They don't prevent crimes. Look at how they... the war on drugs, they've been fighting that for 50, 60 years. That might make some progress sometime, but there's no sign of it. The only thing the police are actually good at solving is, like, resistance. They were set up to quash resistance to capitalism during the Industrial Revolution. And so I think that's what's at the back of the minds of the Liberals and Labor when they increase these police budgets. They are good at hurting protesters, which is what they're really for.
Yeah, I mean, they can't even catch Desi Freeman. Like, seriously.
Yeah.
They spent like millions of dollars on that as well.
Yeah, they put more effort into stopping us taking on the fascists than they do catching an actual cop killer. Yeah.
One thing that's interesting about the introduction of these proposed measures was that it was a secret process that was developed by Jacinta Allen and the Deputy Premier and the Police Minister. They didn't talk to the rest of the Labor cabinet about it.
Incredible.
And the submission that they put forward had no there was no legal advice attached to it. It was just, this is what we're going to do. And the way that the report in The Age that's come out today indicates one of the main reasons they did it because there was polling that suggested that people didn't think that there were enough consequences for actions of crime. So, you sort of talked before about what's the evidence for any of this stuff. They have all of the research and all of this, science or whatever about it. But we've got to show that we're delivering consequences.
Yeah, we focus group this.
Yeah, and it's an election year next year, and we want to just kill this issue.
Exactly.
Campaign aggressively about it. And when they talk about youth crime, everyone knows they're talking about African crime, African youths. And the Apex gang, so-called, and all that kind of stuff. Like, there's a history of that. And the significant thing is, this campaign was done before. Like, the last state election, the Liberals ran a serious law and order campaign, and it fell totally flat, and Labor won a big majority. So there's actually some evidence to show that when the Labor Party stands up and fights against this kind of stuff on the basis of, their version of milquetoast social democracy, they even that can be good and win them results. But in this case, they've decided to just go with it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
to lean into it.
And it is kind of crazy that, Labor in Victoria has an incredibly convincing majority in Parliament, same as federally, and both of those parties, their policies are being influenced by either right-wing media, like Herald Sun reports about African gangs and whatever, or like right-wing radio presenters, and then the federal government's policies 94 seats in Parliament, and has been completely influenced on climate change by some bickering in the Liberal Party
and refugees.
Exactly.
Yeah. You talk to Labor members and they say, we're the margins are too thin. We need to establish ourselves in Parliament. Then we can do the really progressive stuff. But when is that ever going to happen?
One day.
They've got these massive supermajorities, but they still act just the same as the Liberals. I don't believe that the progressive stuff's ever going to come.
I mean, Labor's been in power in Victoria for how long now?
Yeah, almost. A couple of years off, but 2 decades pretty much.
And the police are getting more powers. There's more anti-protest laws, like climate activists. And the recent stuff they've introduced, the headlines have been about masking, targeting the black bloc and whatever. But there's all this other stuff that goes with it, which is much more wide-ranging and sort of hides behind the headlines, which will have an impact for years to come. So it's very, very serious attacks on our rights that are going through right now.
Yeah. And you can also tell that it's actually deeply unpopular within the Labor membership, because usually when they do something like this, they're all out on Twitter defending the government and the stupid shit that they do. But there's no Labor members online defending this. It's entirely right-wing and racist people that are on there being good.
They'll still go out and tell you to vote for it, though.
Totally.
They're quiet right now, but it doesn't
just ignore
mean much.
that bit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of interesting. The ABC today is reporting that Brad Batten has criticised the proposal on the basis that it's a lock 'em up approach. And he supports the raising the age of criminal responsibility, which, makes him an outlier in the Liberal Party. But
it's just cynical.
Yeah, obviously.
Because he knows he's got the law and order vote.
Yeah.
And so now he's just saying, oh, look, I've got a human side.
Yeah.
So it's having his cake and eating it too. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's these laws and the ones that Omar just referenced about criminalising the lock-on devices and the like. The Human Rights Law Centre has done a lot of research into the legislation that has been passed in Australia over the last decade or so that directly targets activism. And the picture that they paint is one of increasing fines and jail terms for people who protest around questions of climate, refugees, Palestine. It's quite, they're attempting to deaden the space for activism.
Yeah.
One of our comrades in Extinction Rebellion went to a maximum security prison.
Jesus.
For a protest crime, like these powers are serious, what they already have, and they're just getting stronger. But could you tell us about the Sydney stuff? Like, we watched the news about these bloody Nazis protesting on the steps of Parliament, like just a few days after the anti-war protests were brutally assaulted.
Well, yeah. So I don't know if Victorian comrades will know, but in New South Wales, we have a protest permit system.
Yes.
You need to apply. Well, you don't need to apply, but you can apply for something called a Form 1, which historically didn't mean permission to protest, but it did give you extra protections. Like if you marched on the road, the cops couldn't charge you with blocking traffic, things like that. More recently, the Supreme Court has changed the context of that so that if you apply for a Form 1 and it's rejected, then it's an actual ban on your protest, which wasn't how it worked before. But the cops let the Form 1 for this protest go through. They let the Nazis go outside Parliament House, whereas they rejected the weapons conference. I can't remember what it was called, but at Darling Harbour, they said that's too dangerous. That's going to hurt people. Same as the Sydney Opera House one. So they routinely reject or place extreme conditions on protests, but not for the Nazis. Who knows why? And
total coincidence.
Yeah. Just the story from Chris Minns was that it was just like an administrative slip up. It never made its way to the police commissioner or to the government.
A miscommunication.
Yeah, I don't know. But what the Nazis did was already illegal. Like, it's illegal to incite racial hatred. They had white supremacist banners. So if the cops wanted, they could have arrested a bunch of people. I don't think that's the solution to Nazism, but they could have done that. But now the Labor government is saying, now we need to reintroduce
we need more powers.
Protest laws. More anti-protest powers, including the one that they tried to get through but failed, which is not being able to protest outside a place of worship. So that would mean, I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember World Youth Day, probably 20 years ago. There were big protests at cathedrals about, child sexual abuse in the Catholic Church, about restrictions on contraception and all sorts of problems. And that's a legitimate political issue. So there are reasons that sometimes you will protest specifically against a church, but sometimes just near it. Like, there are churches dotted throughout the whole city. So if these laws came into place, then you can imagine that, Town Hall in Sydney, there's a cathedral, St Andrews, right next to it. Or Hyde Park has St Mary's right next to it. So there's nowhere to protest if some of this stuff goes through.
So because the police allowed a Nazi rally to target racial minorities, then they need more powers to stop left-wing protests, protesting against war.
It's
and
very
for gay
tortured
rights
logic.
And stuff. Yeah.
But, Chris Minns will take any excuse to
That's right.
Put these powers in place. It's no amount of police powers are going to stop the Nazis for a couple of reasons. Like, one, the police, lots of them are Nazis. If they're not explicitly National Socialists, they are quite sympathetic to them. A lot of what the Nazis want our society to look like is stuff that the police are trying to implement anyway. They brutalize Aboriginal people, they break strikes, they are on the side of the elite. So they are not the answer to this. And we've seen it demonstrated by this. If this incident shows anything, it's that the cops are completely ill-equipped to deal with the far right. They're not willing to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we need to take on the far right ourselves, not rely on the ones in uniform to police the ones out of uniform.
Totally.
And there's actually a connection between these two issues, right? You know, we're saying that the question of youth crime can't be solved with more police powers, and also the sort of rise of the far right can't be either, because both of these questions are born from a racist, violent, unequal society that pits people against one another, that, you know, makes life hard for people. And so in some ways, the answers for both questions are similar. We need to have community like movements that are based on solidarity. We need to have empathy towards young people. We need to resist scapegoating. We need to build up a left that can be confident to push against racism, and to fight for things that would improve the lives of ordinary people. The answer of looking to, the police giving more budgets for weapons, locking people in prisons, then it's never answers to questions of social inequality and social alienation.
Absolutely. I mean, look at the police in Germany. Like they brutalize pro-Palestine activists, and then you've got the AfD run by worshippers of Adolf Hitler, and that just gets a free pass. So yeah, I really agree with all of that. Thanks so much for coming, Tom.
Yeah,
it's been really good.
I'm glad that you invited me on. It's a good project. So,
do you want to tell our listeners anything about your work and
where to find
what you've been doing?
Sure. Well, if you look up our website, it's anticop.com.au, and we're on all social media, so Instagram primarily, and you can find all the links there. We write articles about, say, pepper spray, the history of it, how it works, how to resist it. One thing might be wearing a mask, which is explicitly why Alan is trying to stop people from wearing them, but also the history of like police relations with unions and the contradictions with police unions and how they fit into the movement or don't. And then, we do videos and things. So it's a new project, but I'm having a lot of fun with it. I called it Anti-Cop because there's lots of things which are called like police accountability center or something, and they have fairly radical politics, but with this like liberal face to try and get by in the media and stuff. And I think that's there's a place for that, but it's a losing strategy. Sometimes we need to be quite explicit that the police are the enemy of the working class. They have always been historically, and if we want to create any progressive social change, like the big things at the moment are resisting genocide in Gaza or climate change. Previously, it's been civil rights, the suffragettes, the union movement. Like, the police are on the wrong side of all of that. And so the left needs to be equipped to understand the police and take them on in the street. So that's what the project's about. People can go find us online, Anti-Cop.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thanks
for
so much,
joining
Tom.
us.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Riding out the party line.
Cool. So this week was Remembrance Day week, which I discovered when I was leaving the house on the 11th and trying to find some classical music for my kid to listen to. And
on his way to Pran Coles.
It was all the last post or whatever on every station. So we thought we would do a bit of a look at this day and World War I in general, because these days are just a deliberately constructed attempt to make people forget everything that happened and construct a mythology in its place. I listened to a really interesting podcast about the RSL, for example, which was formed as veterans were returning from Gallipoli, explicitly because they were worried that these people would explain what had happened and what a disaster it was, and become a sort of unruly part of Australian society. And there was actually, a general strike in Australia in 1917. There was lots of class struggle. And so the RSL was created to construct a sort of conservative block to any kind of radical returning soldier kind of culture that could emerge. And these days, even though they're presented as days of reflecting on the sadness of war and so on, it's quite the opposite. And I think the best thing that symbolized that I found this morning while I was reading about it was the statements by Mr. Melick, who I think is the just retired head of the RSL, and he blasted Anthony Albanese for failing to invest more in the military and for endangering Australia in the wars to come, which I think it's funny because you're not meant to do that on these days. You're meant to be totally anodyne and militarist, but in a very safe way. But he said the truth, which is what these people think. They're right-wing culture warriors. They're pro-war. They think war is the best thing that humans can do, and they want to make sure that our army is as strong as it can possibly be. And that's really what these days are all about, which I think is something the left has to totally reject.
Yeah, it's sort of, everything about we're so sorry that everybody died, but what is going on right now is a build-up to war, and this thing's just going to happen over and over again. I think what they don't talk about in World War One was why did it actually happen. They talk about it as one of the origins for the Australian nation and coming together and mateship and people having one another's back. But actually, the First World War was the result of decades of imperial tensions between the great powers, fighting over resources, over trade routes, over, was it going to be Britain or Germany or France or whatever that was going to be the dominant power across Europe. And there was a lot of lead up into the First World War. But then when it exploded, it was like nothing had ever been seen before, because it was like a war on a industrial level. And it's really hard to think about the scale of the loss of life in the war. But in just battles that happened, there would be, hundreds of thousands of people who'd just die over the course of a couple of days. In Australia, over 60,000 people were, like, soldiers were killed in the war.
There's a podcast, sorry to interrupt, about this from The Rest is History, who are pretty intolerable people, really. But they did a series on World War One, super liberal, all about the rich and the elite and the generals and so on mostly. But they talked about one battle where 1 million people lined up on one side and 1 million people on the other side, and they just went at it. Yeah. And they had no idea what they were doing because they were using these Napoleonic era tactics against machine guns, early machine guns and rifles and so on. And so people were just being slaughtered.
Totally.
And they were fighting over inches of ground.
Yeah.
Like they... Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the Battle of the Somme. So it's 141 days of just constant
slaughter,
going at each other. Yeah. In that battle, 1 million soldiers died. Like 1 million people killed. And you're right. It's like the trenches would go back and forth like a couple of inches, and the front was basically what it was for 4 years. Like that's just...
And if you think about it, it's like back then how the battalions worked and stuff. It was just like all the men from one town were in this battalion, and it meant an entire town was wiped out in like one like explosion, like immediately, and then like the devastation that would leave. But it's like these like millions of people were dying because we're doing stupid shit for no reason.
Yeah, it's the sacrifices that the imperial elite were willing to make.
And it's kind of terrifying because the assumption was that trench warfare is a thing of the past, that, this is not how modern wars were going to be fought. But if you look at the war between, like, Russia's war on Ukraine, well, that actually has been trench warfare, but then just made even more terrifying by the fact that there's drones and instead of being in trenches with, other people or whatever, you're in little armed units, totally alienated, just being shot at and killed by unmanned...
Yeah, someone kilometres away in a room.
It's just terrifying.
Yeah. And the fact that, like, it was such a class-divided war, and I mean, all war is, but it was... When you have this kind of mass slaughter, it's even more extreme, like the way you were saying. So the officers are all private school, Etonian, stuff like that.
Cavalry kind of thing.
And wearing the feathers and all the stuff. And they're just sending these kids to die. And they did it for years and years and years. Australians, like, what were we doing? Gallipoli. We celebrate this day and this event as like the founding of the Australian nation. Like, where is Gallipoli? It's in Turkey. In what sense is this a defense of the Australian? Like, it's ludicrous propaganda that people just imbibe unquestioningly. We were invading Turkey to give it to the Tsar. Like, the plan was the Tsar, this monarchy that had existed for 500 years dominating Russia, was going to get all the territory up to Turkey. That's why we were there. And then Palestine, Australian troops are involved in conquering Palestine and parts of Egypt. Again, to give to the British Empire. So, and then the construction of Israel. So, like, imperialist wars are never anything to do with defense. But from an Australian perspective, it should be even more obvious that this was just a pure war of imperial aggression, and our working class people should have had nothing to do with it. But they were sacrificed by a Labor leader at the time for the sake of maintaining the alliance with the British Empire, which is a theme that has come up time and time again in Australian history.
And because the war was so encompassing and so brutal, it opened up a lot of political resistance and opposition. So in a lot of the mainstream accounts of the First World War, they talk about how there were layers of people, working class people in Australia who were enthusiastic and taken up by the war. But actually you read a bit deeper and it's pretty clear that that didn't last that long and it wasn't very widespread and it didn't really impact working class communities very deeply past a certain point. But everybody knew someone who had been sent to war. Australia also had a large number of working class people who'd come from Ireland. There was a recent history of strikes and resistance. And then...
Well, there was the Easter Uprising.
Exactly. Yeah. So people are sort of being exposed to the fact that the British army that they're supposed to be going to fight and support put down an uprising, a national uprising in Ireland. It's just like this like melting pot of anger, despair, and then, you know, recent sort of experiences of resisting and fighting back. And then the Labor government's like, we're going to have a referendum on conscription because not enough of you are joining up to the war effort. And
Beautiful.
This just unleashed like just mass resistance against the war in Australia.
Yeah, I was listening to a talk about it this morning by a historian called Robert Bollard, who describes how in the beginning of the war, there was a massive economic crisis in Australia, unemployment like 11%. So all these people were joining, basically economically conscripted.
Yep.
But then very quickly, because it's a world war, it's just absorbing everything that can be produced everywhere to be thrown on the front lines. Unemployment collapses in Australia. And so nobody wants to fight. Like fighting was the last resort. And so, yeah, they have to force people to sign up. And so they start organizing all these meetings all around the place.
Yeah.
And they just start getting attacked from working class people, the left, trade unionists, wobblies, international workers of the world.
The IWW had a really great, like they were known for just producing like the best posters, you know, just the
They're
way
still
of...
good to look at.
And their one of their really early pamphlets said, "War is hell. Send the capitalists to hell and wars are impossible," which is just such a perfect thing because it's like, these fuckers are never going to, you know, go and fight. There's not enough of them to do it. They rely on us. So, you know,
to
send
be the
them.
cannon fodder, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's one really cool story in it where they started organizing women's only meetings because these chauvinists, you know, they believe that women are just sort of passive and conservative and nationalist. And it's all these radical men who are just fucking it up for them. So they think, oh, I know what we'll do. We'll win over all the wives and daughters to be pro-war. And then they'll like lobby their partners and dads and stuff to go sign up. And so they start putting on these meetings, but then the women are even more like unleashed than the men because they've never had this experience, but they have to do it. So they haven't been involved in that much organizing previously, but the necessity of the moment requires them. And so they step up and they just like, they basically organize riots. They start pelting stuff at the speakers and just like putting on music and just shutting down the whole events. And they become like a riot. And it was the last time they tried to. They did it in Richmond, and it was the last time they tried because basically the women made it impossible. And this was the thing. It was like weekly demonstrations. There were meetings on street corners every other day. Like in Sydney, the Domain became just like a seething hive of politics. And
It was like because the, you know, attempt to do this conscription referendum just gave a political focus and a way to be sort of oppositional to the war. And yeah, like Omar said, like just this unleashing of sort of political action. One of my favorite sort of examples of that is from the the mining areas in New South Wales. There's a revolutionary socialist called Percy Brookfield, and he was part of this big rank and file strike committee that was set up. And they established this thing called the Labor Volunteer Army. And so it was about organising people to defend anti-conscription meetings, because the pro-conscriptionists would come in and try and belt them and beat them up. And so they're like, we have to organise political defence of our meetings. And so they had their own sort of like pledge that people would sign up to if they joined the Labor Volunteer Army. And it's just like, we don't write like this anymore, but it's just like, you know, so they're in Broken Hill, the site of like a lot of working class resistance. And it's like, being fully convinced that conscription of life and labour in Australia will be a death blow to organised labour and will result in the workers of this land crushed into subjection by a capitalist military oligarchy, do hereby pledge myself to the working class of Australia. It's like such a class identification. Like,
totally. And so they put this thing they actually had to do a referendum because conscription was a fundamental change to how the thing worked, and they lost.
Yeah.
And it actually led one of the couple of times in Australia's history where the Labor Party rank and file and the trade union movement actually expelled a Labor leader from the Labor Party rather than go along with these criminal activities. And a lot of the unions got on board with the campaign against conscription, which was the precursor to this. And so it was really a mass working class movement.
Yeah.
Comparable in a way, though different, but like the regularity of it is a bit like what we've just experienced with Gaza, in the sense there was just weekly actions, constantly mobilization. But the difference was that it was organized through unions, through workplaces. Back then, working class people lived really tightly in like these kind of ghetto slum things like Richmond, Collingwood, Fitzroy, etc. So organising looked different then. You could just go door to door. You'd have street things. You'd have street corner speeches, all that. But it was a mass movement, the likes of which the world had never seen. And they really thought that there was going to be a revolution in Australia.
Yeah.
Like they really thought afterwards, holy shit. Like, especially when the revolution in Russia happened and the general strikes unfolding in 1917, like this was the real radicalisation of the working class of Australia. And it was the thing you said about Ireland's really interesting. You know Simpson and the donkey? He was actually Irish. He was called Fitzpatrick. But when they subsequently... they changed the name because they don't want to be associated with the scum Irish, you know.
Yeah.
And so there's a whole Irish Catholic anti-imperialist kind of streak that really informed it. And you know, similar to today, there's specific like anti-colonial kind of populations and politics that inform the current understanding of war. But so these things all come together. But the fact that it was through the unions meant that it was so much more radical. Because the unions could wield their economic muscle, and they did the following year in 1917, and really fundamentally bring society to a halt.
It was so radical and such a sort of angry moment for people that it tore the Labor Party apart and led to a split. And the sitting Prime Minister, who had been Labor, was, you know, he kicked out of the Labor Party, or he left because he was so hated and they so diverged, which is sort of shows that, like the power of ordinary people organised through unions can actually create such political ruptures that they can tear apart the government. The 1917 general strike shows you where the radicalism was heading, because it sort of started because they were bringing in a new like system for punching in, which, you know, was supposed to be about efficiency.
Beautiful.
Meant that people had to work longer hours, harder. And so starts in the railways in New South Wales.
Redfern, I think,
just spreads up. It's called the New South Wales Great Strike, but it was spread all across the East Coast. And there's a really lovely story from Mick Armstrong has an article in the Marxist Left Review about like how World War led to class war in Australia. And he talks about these women meat workers at the Alligator Creek Meat Works, which is just like, what a name. But they made these red Guernseys, and they wove the word revolution across them. And then like they had these parades where they were like parading for revolution. It's just so beautiful.
Well, one of the founding principles of the RSL is anti-communism. You know, like it's right in there. It's so important to them. And this is sort of some of the reason, because the RSL formed at the same time as the Russian Revolution. And so all these things are happening together. Gallipoli, World War One, the Russian Revolution. And so the ruling class is losing their grip. And they're worried because they've got all these thousands of working class people who've just been fighting and dying for empire in Europe. And then they're coming back and they're bringing their guns. What the fuck are we going to do with these people? So the RSL is just there to control them.
Well, there was a big fight in Townsville.
Yeah, and Fremantle as well.
In Townsville, they these workers are like arguing with the RSL members and saying, you have to take off that badge of slavery, and they were referring to the RSL badge.
Yeah, it was very much because it was an officers. Like the RSL was run by the officers, so all these private school right-wing National Party shitheads. And so the whole organization's anti-left. They do heaps of strike breaking, like in Broken Hill and other places. They're pro-royal, like they're monarchical. You know, a lot of the people involved in it subsequently are part of the new and old guard, and then in a later generation around the Vietnam era, they're part of a new sort of fascist movement. So it's very much like they're establishing a network of the far right, and they use the fact that they control. Labor gives them control over veterans' payments, so they disperse them. So they use that to build their machine, and even still, people rebel. But eventually, they become institutionalized as the sort of welfare provision institution, and so you tie all these soldiers to this sort of far right organization.
It's crazy. Like I worked. This is weirdly related. I worked for the Royal Commission into Defence and Veteran Suicide. They still are the welfare provider.
That's their role.
Like there is the Department of Veteran Affairs, but they are, like, in terms of their funding, they get all of the funding to do all of the stuff and do it badly still today, and it is horrifying.
And they would withhold it from trade unionists. So if you were known to be a trade unionist, you wouldn't get it. If you were a leftist, you know, a pacifist, anything like that, you would not get the welfare. So, you know, that was the Labor Party that gave them that power because they wanted to, again, neutralize them in the way that Labor always does. By the way, that Merrick guy who criticized Albanese, just to give you a sense of his class background and the way this thing still works, he was in the commando, the SAS stuff, and you know he was an elite fighter, and you know, so these people, it's like this clique of right wing private school elite boys, and they're pro-war, and then we're supposed to wear like a red poppy as if we're commemorating the cannon fodder who they all wanted to die then and would want to die in the future. I saw there was a scandal in the UK. The Greens, is he the leader? Zach, what's his name?
Polinsky.
He was wearing a red poppy and a white poppy because the white poppy is like the sort of the pacifist one. But he still wore the red one. It's still a concession. But you know, he was trying to make a soft piece, a pacifist slogan or whatever. And he was attacked mercilessly by the press for being like an anti, you know, not respecting the fallen heroes and whatever. So there is no room for anti-war politics around these days. And so I think socialists have to be really clear about why there's no such thing as a left commemoration of Anzac Day or a left commemoration of Remembrance Day.
Because, I mean, part of the other organised forgetting that people have around the First World War is actually a way that it ended. Which was through revolution.
Yeah, no one knows, huh?
Yeah.
How did it end? You know, Archduke Ferdinand was killed. That's how it started, but just sort of ended. Yeah, but actually it's like, well, in Russia, the whole revolution is sparked because people are hostile to the war that's playing out. And
what's the Lenin quote? Is it, you wrote it down? It's really quite good.
Where is it? Yeah. The best war on war is revolution. Beautiful. And so, you know, obviously it leads to the revolution that breaks out in February leads to the destruction of the Tsarist regime, you know, a dictatorship, whatever, that had lasted for 300 years. And the key demand of the Russian Revolution is peace, land and bread. And so when the Russian Revolution succeeds in October, they organise a peace with Germany, but then it's the German workers exploding in revolution in 1919, which finally leads to the war having to end because Germany can't fight it any longer.
Yeah. I mean, it's worth saying that in February, with the first revolution in Russia, the Social Democrats and the sort of liberals, roughly equivalent, supported the war continuing. You know? And so the war didn't end until October for that reason, like Russia's involvement, because the moderates who support capitalism support imperialism. That's always been the way. So it wasn't until the capitalist government was overthrown and a socialist government properly implemented that war ended. And then, the Germans, it was just a mutiny in the army. It was in 1918, end of 1918. It was just a rebellion among the Navy. And one thing, when you read about this stuff, you pick up things that you would never think about otherwise. Like the Navy has always been a more working class part of the army because disproportionately got engineers, maintenance crews. The people who make the ships function are just like working in a factory kind of thing. So there's more of them and less of the killers, even though the killers can be workers too. But in this context, it's more like people who are not doing any killing and mostly focusing on maintaining this floating factory. So they just rebelled because towards the end of the war, they could see that this was going badly for Germany. And they were just going to be, there was one last attack that the Navy officers sent just to kill them all. They just did a suicide mission, wanted to kill all these ships and destroy all the people on board. And they just said, no, we're not doing this anymore. And so they refused to go and they organized like a workers' council, a Soviet. I think it was in Kiel.
Yeah.
And then it spread across the coast just spontaneously. And they got the idea from Russia, obviously. But then, so the German army just fell apart. And basically that was the end of the war because Russia first and now Germany have just given up. They've just lost the capacity to fight, which is a really cool story. And the best anti-war movement is one that makes it impossible to fight. And at a smaller level, we saw that in Vietnam, where the army and the black part of it in particular, inspired by the civil rights movement and black power, were just like, why the fuck am I fighting in Vietnam when I go home and I'm in segregation?
Yeah.
So that's always the most powerful way to end a war, is to mutiny from within. And that's a long tradition of socialist organizing, trying to do that over the years.
And we're going to have to remember a lot of this history as we enter into a more, globally chaotic imperialist sort of future. And remember the fact that ordinary people are the ones that are sent to fight, but it's ordinary people who can stop the fighting. We're going to need to remember that.
Absolutely. That's what we remember.
Yeah.
On every day.
Riding out the party line.
So we're recording this podcast today on the 13th of November, which is a few days after the Whitlam dismissal and a few days after Remembrance Day / Armistice Day. And next week we're going to be talking to Diane Fields, who's a former historian professor
at UNSW.
At UNSW.
She's a socialist historian.
So the best kind, in fact. The only correct kind. And we're going to talk about the dismissal. And hopefully get a bit better coverage about it than we've been seeing the last week.
Yeah, the Batuta advocate called Whitlam a socialist. And said that it was all just MI5 and the CIA. There's some truth to that. Find out more next week.
I reckon they were influenced by the Anti-Communism Week announcement.
Yeah.
And Diane will give us a bit of an insight into like the Labor Party as well. A bit of a broader kind of picture into what kind of party the Labor Party really is.
Yeah, because there's this idea like it was once, really good.
Yeah, it's just lost its way.
Yeah, and I think the fact that it supported World War I and tried to sign up tens of thousands of working class kids to die should put some dent in that. But we'll go into more detail.
So we're looking forward to that. A few other things. We promised you we'd turn off the ads if we got 10 Patreon subscribers.
But you failed us.
Well, we got 9. And
it's actually you that are the problem.
We're very thankful to all the people who have signed up. It's going to allow us to buy some stickers, which we can get out to people one way or another. But please do subscribe to the Patreon. We want to keep on putting out content, and it really helps us to do that. And part of the other thing that I wanted to say is that we got a request from a listener to do a sort of audience question style episode.
Q&A, but without Patricia Carvelis.
Yeah.
Shame.
And also
Massively improved.
no live audience either.
So you can't protest us like we did.
So if you want to head to the Patreon after you finish listening, there's a post up, which is just like a space where you can submit questions. So just write a comment, and that counts as like a question being submitted, and hopefully we'll be able to get to it.
Can you tell that we're trying to direct you towards the Patreon? It's subtle, but it's there.
Imperceptible.
Yeah.
I haven't gone to a marketing subject, but I feel like we've got the dynamics down pat.
Yeah, I think it's very smooth. The final thing Annika is really passionate about is to let you all know that we're on YouTube. Not quite sure why it matters, but we're on all the mediums.
Every single
It
one.
matters
single
because
one.
Geordie puts, and other people put effort into editing the videos and like putting little clips, and
That's true.
The clips are nice.
and you can see us.
Yeah, it is. I prefer watching podcasts, but not everyone does.
And like you could sort of do like what the Zoomers do. You can have one screen is like
too much
us,
detail.
and then the other one is like playing like Assassin's
Yeah.
Creed or something like that.
Yeah,
Subway
and you could
Surfer.
also be cooking with your left foot and mopping the floor with your right. We got all sorts of life advice
No,
here.
no, you don't need to mop the floor because you can just get one of the Robo
Oh, yeah.
vacuum mops. So
Anyways, thanks for listening to the Party Line.
Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling party line. Oh, I never will forsake thee, for I love this life of mine.